Kia ora, ko Stephanie tuka ingoa, haere mai. Welcome to Adaptive Go. Hi, my name is Stephanie. Today I'm really excited. We're going to talk about the Garmin Fenix Success watch. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that I'm not sponsored, and I bought this watch with my own money. And I bought this watch because I thought the fitness tracking might be really good for people with chronic health conditions to signal when their body is heading into a flare and that they might need to change the way that they're doing their pacing. This vid isn't really a gear review. There's lots of those on YouTube already. This vid's more about how a fitness tracker watch like the Garmin Fenix can help people with a chronic health condition to signal when they might be heading into a flare or when they might need to instigate a little bit more pacing than they would normally. So adapting to live full and free lives means looking at all sorts of different equipment that we can use to enable us to live our lives better. And when I was an athlete about 9-10 years ago, before my health condition really started to take hold, I would, take my resting heart rate in the morning and use heart rate tracker and try and work out based on how I felt, whether I was good to go for high intensity training or low intensity training or somewhere in between. And my hypothesis is that we can actually use fitness trackers like that for health conditions. So I'm really excited about this piece of kit. I've been using it for about 3 or 4 weeks and I'm loving it, and I'm getting lots more data and lots more information, and I'm finding it really helpful for managing my health condition and for better understanding what might be causing some of the problems with me feeling low in energy and how to best adjust to that. So why the Garmin Fenix Success? Well, we're a sort of Android user family, although my son has Apple. And Apple Watch do show up as some of the best fitness tracking and also smartwatch capabilities. So the two things together give it a really high rating. Apple have medical quality ECGs and heart rate tracking, so it's highly accurate. The only other fitness tracker that came close in the Android market was the Fitbit, but Garmin has more monitoring than what I understand the Fitbit to do, and as well to be able to access the Fitbit analysis that I wanted to be able to access. I had to purchase the premium Fitbit product. So Garmin's product is free. When you buy the watch, their app that comes along with it, you can access and track and use all the analysis. And while some people comment about the Garmin app not being as user-friendly, I've found it fine, and I've found that I've been able to do everything I want to do with the app. So all in all, the Garmin is accurate. You don't have to pay extra for a premium analysis product. It generally takes more readings than the other trackers, and it has better wider platform that you can run over the top of it. So third-party apps you can run over, like Strava and Spotify. The other reason why I chose the Garmin is because it has an integrated exercise platform. So it has a whole bunch of exercise workouts. So you can tell it that you're doing Pilates, or you're doing yoga, or you're doing walking, or you're doing cycling. These exercise workouts are very targeted, so the data that they collect is quite specific to each exercise workout. So if you're kayaking, it'll pick up when you're kayaking versus walking. You have to tell it that you're doing one of those two activities, but it will be able to adjust its workout kind of sensors, I guess, to that type of activity that you're doing. And then combined with that, it's also got really good GPS tracking. And in addition, it's got maps that you can use. So if you're walking, it can track where you're walking, likewise where you're running, and it's got very good map data. So it's got ski map data of all the ski fields, and amazingly enough, nearly all of the New Zealand ski fields, the major ones anyway, are recorded in the Garmin app. So of course, if you've been watching this channel, you'll know that the ski field technology and map access was would have been a really big plus for me. But I guess it can also tell if you can tell it that you're skiing, and so it will change its workout data for that as well. I don't know how well that will work on the sit skis, so it'll be interesting to see once the ski season starts how that goes, and I'll give you an update and let you know. Anyway, all of this data and integrated function and analysis is something that's really hugely exciting for me, and I don't know about other people, but because I used to kind of compete and I was into this data and tracking performance and all that sort of stuff, and now there's this technology that just makes it so much easier, and all the integrated data that it's taking is really exciting. Garmin's doing the only thing that I know that any of the fitness trackers are doing, and I didn't know about it until I bought the watch that it was doing this. And what Garmin's doing is something called a body battery assessment, and so it's taking integrated data from your variable heart rate, which is your stress tracker, your heart rate, your exercise, your quality of your sleep, and I don't know what else, and then plugging that all in over a 24-hour period and giving you a body battery reading. So if you've had really good night's sleep and you've taken all the stress breaks that you needed the day before, and your heart rate's in a good place, then you'll have a really good recharge on your body battery when you're up and moving the next morning. So you know that you're good to go for a solid day. And some days I've woken up with a body battery of only 30 out of 100, and I know I feel rubbish on these days, and the stats on my watch also show I'm feeling rubbish with this 30 out of 100 reading, and that was the week that I went into a flare, and so the watch was telling me all through that week I had readings between 30 and 60, and if I did too much exercise or I did too much activity, my readings plummeted throughout the course of the day around the body battery. So I was getting constant feedback around how well I was pacing during that flare. And if I followed what my watch was saying and took more rest breaks, I actually felt better and my body battery reading came up. And so this was a really, really good independent sort of data on how I was coping and managing with my day during a flare. For me, this is really exciting and is and means that you have a much better signal of not underdoing it during a flare and not overdoing it as well. So if you're one of those people who go, well, I'm in a flare, I'm just going to do nothing, well, yes, you can bring your body battery up, to about 50, but when it's back at 50, you should be starting to do some moving during your flare. So and if you're one of those people that push through a flare, it's giving you really good data. Hey, you're not getting over 30, you kind of need to back off a little bit, or you're plummeting. So this is really exciting, and I think for people who have chronic fatigue and advice around needing to pace or needing to exercise and pace and keep things moving, this is a really good way of sort of finding that miracle balance line that everybody says that exists, yet just seems really hard to sort of find that middle of the road. And this watch combined with the data really does help do that. This under or overtraining problem is a conundrum with athletes as well. And when I was researching this, I found a blog which was a coach that sort of coaches runners, and he also talked about this under and over effect that leads to under or over training. You know, you got sore muscles in the morning, so you're not going to train. In actual fact, you could have trained, you're just being extra cautious. And the same goes with, oh, I feel a bit fatigued today, I'm just going to push through it. So athletes have been sort of exploring this technology for a while and using it to really lift performance, and I really think there's something in it for those of us who have chronic health conditions, and for me it's really working, and that's why I bought this watch, and it's doing everything that I wanted it to do for me. But there are a few problems with the watch and the technology that mean that the body battery reading can get a little mixed up sometimes. So one of the problems that I've found with the watch is that you have to tell it when you're doing exercise, and if you don't tell it when you're doing exercise, it will overestimate the amount of stress in your body and your rest breaks. So the body battery reading does something different over here with the exercise and different over here with the stress, so it doesn't really take a stress reading while you're exercising, and that kind of makes sense because your heart rate is more variable because of the load that you're putting on it with exercise. So that's one thing, is you've got to tell it when you're exercising. Now my son, he has an Apple Watch, and his watch will work out when he's exercising and will flick into an exercise mode. But I guess with this watch, because it's got so many different tailored workouts, you really need to tell it that you're doing exercise, because it wouldn't know which one to flick into. Maybe I don't know why it's like that. The other problem with this watch is the sleep cycle takes a long time to upload. So you'll kind of get a draft body battery reading. I don't know how it does this in the morning without the sleep cycle data added to it. What we've done a little bit of research, there's a big delay in the sleep cycle going onto the watch, and sometimes it can take up to an hour before your watch is telling you what sort of quality night's sleep you've had. Now if you're wanting to train in the morning, for instance, or like me, I go for my walks with Ramon early in the morning, then I'm doing that in the dark around how much sleep I've had and what my real body battery reading is. So after the Garmin has loaded up to the server and back, then you get a much more accurate body battery reading. I don't know why it takes so long to go to the cloud and then back to your watch again, or your in-app. A bit of a heads up that if you're an athlete really wanting that accurate reading first off in the morning, that's a bit of a downer. I am going to do a later video on the sleep tracker and how good or not it is. Following this video, I'm running a series of videos on sleep. I've been doing a lot of research on it, and I've found out lots of really cool stuff, and I'm really excited to share it with you, so make sure you subscribe. But in the meantime, this sleep tracker, I think it's the same with all of the watches and wearables that you use for sleep. You tell it what your sleeping time is. So mine's like 9:30 to 5:45 or whatever, and I tell it that that's my regular sleep time, and so within that time it knows that it's sort of tracking sleep. But if you don't go to bed at 9 o'clock that night often, and you're moving around and dancing at a pub, it'll clearly know that you're not sleeping. But if you're just not able to sleep and you've chosen to read a book, or like I did one night, I stayed up to 5 o'clock in the morning because I didn't feel tired at all that night, and then I went to bed and it was an hour before my alarm went off. Now that night it told me that I'd had 4.5 hours sleep. The other thing about the sleep tracker is even if you have it on your wrist so tight that it's, you know, digging into your skin and you can't possibly move it, if you press on it or jam it up like this in the night so it's a little bit off your wrist, it won't record your blood oxygen saturation levels properly. So I sleep with these splints, and we cut a hole in my splint so that my watch could fit around the straps. I'll just show it to you really quickly. Now, we did that so you can now see that the watch has room and we're not pressing on it, but we were still getting not very accurate readings, so it looked like I was suffocating at night, and that I really needed to urgently go and see a doctor about my poor quality sleep, you know. And my average reading with blood oxygen levels at night was pretty low, so I went and saw my hand therapist and swapped and got her to make me a new splint where the watch was more protected. And not only was this new splint more comfortable, but all of a sudden my blood oxygen levels were in the normal range again. So I think my point is that these watches aren't miracle workers. You know, they can't tell when you're awake and when you're asleep. And they only really record within sleep windows that you've told it that you're sleeping. And if you're pressing on them or pushing them, the accuracy of their blood oxygen measures really drops. Even so, if you work around it and you find little solutions and you understand the limitations of the watch, I think it's amazing. Like I say, I'm really understanding my body a lot better and how to work with it when I'm flaring or not feeling so well, and what sort of actions I need to take to really sort of manage myself through a flare, or even when I'm feeling well, how hard can I push myself? So I think this is a really, really useful tool for someone who has a chronic health condition. So before I finish up, I just want to tell you some other really cool things about this watch. I bought the Garmin is very expensive, but look for a sale. I bought this watch on sale at half price, so they have them. It was Mother's Day. The other thing is it's got a really good screen, so on bright days you're still able to read the screen, which will be really good for me when I'm up the mountain. It's got buttons, which took me a little while to get used to how to use them. So you know, you have to work out what button's doing what thing. But when you're out walking or you've got gloves on and those sorts of things, or lots of things around your screen, it's quite handy, and it's becoming more instinctual the longer I have the watch. They've got the Garmin Fenix 6S. It's a little smaller, so being a woman, I have slightly smaller wrists, and being a woman and also smaller, so this watch works for me. I didn't like the colour wave, but at half price I wasn't going to grizzle at that. And what else can I tell you about this watch? It's got a really good battery life. I think the 6S isn't quite as good a battery life as the 6, but it's really good. Running it all the time, I run it on the high quality spec data, so it does rip through the data, through the battery life a little faster, but I'm still only needing to charge it every 2 or 3 days, so I think that's great. So I think that's kind of the pluses that I haven't already told you about with this watch. So I also did a little bit of research on what to do. So if you're thinking you might want to buy a watch to help you with your fitness tracking or managing your condition, I think you should do some research on what sort of watch you want. So I wasn't much interested in the smartwatch capability. I would find this small screen to navigate your text messaging and all that sort of stuff. I think I just find it frustrating, so I wasn't much interested in that smartwatch capability, but some people are and really like that. So then, you know, you're into the Apple Watch or the Samsung Watch or something like that. for me it was about, the real plus was the ski fields and the skiing and the different exercise modes, and the GPS location and the tracking, and so that sort of pushes you into more the fitness trackers, and then you're sort of comparing different fitness trackers. So for me, ski maps really pushed me into the Fenix sort of range, and whereas Fitbit have quite good, they rate really highly for all of this sort of functionality, but like I say, you need to be prepared to buy the premium app to be able to analyze and get all the data that you want out of your watch. So it's just sort of a bit of a trick to look at, but then they're also cheaper. So, you know, I think the most important thing that I read from all the reviews was actually work out what's important to you first, and then look at what watch best matches that.